On June 28th, 1914, Gavrilo Princip assassinated Franz Ferdinand, an act of murder that would pull nation after nation into one of the most brutal battles in world history, a conflict that would come to be known as the Great War. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Russia joined in to defend its ally. Germany declared war on both Russia and France in response, and more countries quickly jumped into the fight. The thrashing bodies of thousands of young soldiers thrust into the front lines like sliced vegetables into a pot of boiling water. By the end of World War I, France's countryside, where the fighting was the most concentrated, had been left permanently scarred by winding mazes of trenches, piled corpses of unlucky soldiers, abandoned dog tags mixed with bloody silverware, and lead and arsenic levels so high from munitions that even still today, there are some areas the French government prohibits people from entering. This abandoned tract of non-contiguous land is known as the Zone Rouge, or France's Red Zone, and officials estimate it could take up to 700 more years before it is finally fit for people to live in again. It should come as no surprise that a land soaked in this much bloodshed and pollution is also home to some of France's eeriest ghost stories. In the Zone Rouge, eyewitnesses report that spirits of lost soldiers wander down darkened forest pathways or stand at attention within trenches, unaware that they are dead. The ghosts of rural children killed by accident as bombs rained down on the countryside can still be seen peering around corners of abandoned homes and farms. Poltergeist activity, including disembodied knocking and objects being thrown toward trespassers, have been reported by those who dare cross into the zone both day and night. And eerie World War I military music can sometimes be heard floating through the air when the wind blows just right. On today's episode of Let's Get Haunted, we'll be exploring the paranormal activity associated with France's most somber and restricted region, the Zone Rouge, or France's Red Zone.
Welcome back to Let's Get Haunted
with your hosts,
Nat Strawn
and Allie. Welcome back, Haunties, to episode 257 of Let's Get Haunted. We are your hosts, Allie and Nat, and we're here to ensure that you get haunted at least once a week. Today, I have a really cool episode to share with you guys that is the perfect melding, I think, of history, folklore, urban legend, and ghost story. But before we dive into it, I am so excited to welcome our friend and fellow podcaster, Cassie Askin of Tell Me Your Ghost Story. Cassie, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Heyo, thank you for the nice introduction, and I am so stoked to get so haunted right now. I'm already scared, so thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Cassie.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you on. I feel like this is long overdue. Cassie, for those of you who are not familiar with her podcast, you should definitely go check it out. It's a great podcast. Also, Nat and I were on it recently, so you can check us out over there as well. We'll have it linked in the show notes when it comes out. But Cassie's also what I would say is like one of the most pleasant people to be around in the podcasting scene in Los Angeles. So this is really great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. As we know, there's so many podcasters in LA, so that's quite a title. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Cassie, if I hadn't met you in person, I would be convinced that you are just a doll, especially now looking at like the room that you're in. Like, I'm like, you are doll maxing. You are a doll. I have met you before in person, so I know you are human, but I don't know. It's giving doll.
I'll take it. I
love dolls.
Yeah, Annabelle in the flesh right over here.
Yeah, we also...
Thank you.
My landlord recently, for the studio we're in, gave me this haunted doll. So speaking of dolls, there we go. And actually, you know what? This is kind of serendipitous. I did not plan this, but this is actually a French haunted doll. Allegedly, there's a French spirit inside of it. Her name is Maricel, and her little friend is Pierre. So that's kind of a coincidence.
A doll with a doll. Ooh.
I know. Oh, there's something not right about it.
And wait, it's a mermaid with no hair?
Yeah. She said that moths ate the hair.
We actually kind of love that though, because we need some like bald representation in
Agreed.
dolls. I feel like there's not much out there.
Yeah, sexy
Exactly.
bald doll. I think that should be the new thing we should lobby Mattel for. But not getting too off topic, because Cassie, I would like to know if you could describe your podcast to our listeners for anyone who might not be familiar with it.
Yeah, so on Tell Me Your Ghost Story, people tell me their ghost story. I named it because that is what I ask people at a party when I've had like exactly 2 drinks. I just love hearing people's paranormal experiences. And it's not just ghost stories. I have like a time travel episode, I have a goblin episode. But yeah, people come on and they share their true paranormal experiences in their own words. There's very little of me in it. So if you find me annoying today, don't worry. You can go and listen to my podcast all the same. I'm not in it that much. On my social media, that has my face all over it. So if you do like me, that will be for you. I do like Creepy Real Photos is my photo series that I've been doing for about a year now. I feature photos with ghosts in them. And yeah.
Yeah, I really love your Instagram. Your Instagram
Yeah.
has so many good reels that you could just scroll for forever until you
Thank
you.
die and become your own ghost.
Thank
but is
you.
there like a ghost story that you've been told on your show that's really stuck with you to kind of give the people a taste? And you don't have to tell the whole thing, but I'm just curious because you've collected, I don't know, hundreds of ghost stories at this point. So is there one or two that really like you keep coming back to in your mind?
Yeah, one that is the top of my head, like a specific ghost one. This is like not one of the crazier ones, but I keep thinking about it. So this is J. Hunter Richardson's story. He was up north staying in a dorm, but the students hadn't moved in yet. And so him, his girlfriend, and his friend were the only ones staying in this dorm. And it was a notoriously haunted dorm. And they had all just like gotten in and settled down. They're like had just like drifted off to sleep. And he hears his friend say, "Did one of you get out of bed?" They were in 2 separate beds. Like him and his girlfriend were in one and his other friend was in another bed. So he hears his friend say, "Did you just get out of bed?" And they both kind of wake up. They're like, "No." And he goes, "Someone's standing at my feet." And just that phrase, like, no, someone's standing at my feet. And they all watch as this shadowy figure moves from the end of this guy's bed around to the head of his bed. And he said that the guy had enough like time to react and be like, please no, stop, go away, please no. And as it moves, it passes in front of one of those old school like green number alarm clocks. And as it passes in front of it, the numbers warp. And he said it looked like the numbers were like underwater. And then it passes and then it just kind of looks at his friend and then it disappears. But I love that so much because it's like,
I'm gonna cry.
right?
Yeah,
a
that brought
ghost
tears to my eyes. That's
a ghost interacting with something physical like that. And it makes me just think about like the science of how ghosts are here and like, how did that happen? And like, they all 3 saw the exact same thing. And then just the phrase, somebody standing at my feet is absolutely horrifying. But I keep coming back to that one.
Yeah, I would not be able to move on from that either. That is like,
no.
Yeah, and that's also like a great visual because as you know, since you have collected so many ghost stories, sometimes someone's telling you their story and it's more about like an uneasy feeling they had, which is still scary, but it's not quite the same as, like you said, a ghost physically manipulating the environment around it. That just adds like a completely different layer.
Absolutely.
Well, the reason why I'm so excited to have you on in part is because if you guys are listening right now and you're finding us through Cassie, and so you're not familiar with our show, we cover tons of different topics. For us, the phrase haunted means a lot of different things. It could be a creature, it could be a ghost, it could be a conspiracy theory, it could just be like a weird medical condition. So we don't always cover ghost stories, but I've been wanting to do this topic for a really long time. And when I was trying to figure out what episode to invite you on for, I was like, we gotta have Cassie on for a good old-fashioned ghost story because I feel like you're gonna have a lot to add to this.
Well, thank you. And I'm so stoked. I have never heard of this. So this is gonna be brand new to me. I'm so stoked.
Oh, I'm so excited. Nat, have you ever heard of Zone Rouge? I had not.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it, yeah, because I'm very interested in war history. I don't know, there's a lot of horses that are involved in war history, and I'm a horse girl, and it's really interesting to see how like the cavalry was and how man and horse have evolved together to kind of like fight wars. It's very dark and macabre. If you love horses, I would actually not look into it because it's very sad. But my haunted ass just can't not learn about it. So I don't know all about it. I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say, but I know every once in a while someone will post something to Reddit that's a picture of just like trenched, like ripped up land, and they'll be like, this is Zone Rouge in France, and like you can't go there for 700 years or whatever because it's like radioactive or something. I'm not quite sure why, but that was my understanding. It's not good for you to go there. And that's, yeah, I don't know a whole lot else about it. So I'm really excited about this episode.
I did a lot of research about this topic, and I have come away from it with the ghost sighting part of this story kind of just being the cherry on top, because even without paranormal activity, I still think this place would qualify by our definition as haunted, because it is eerie. It is abandoned. Like you said, Nat, it's like ripped up earth, things that have not been touched since the early 1900s. And I'm just so excited to get into it because this is definitely something that I have not been able to not think about ever since I first started researching it. I like a good glass of wine at the end of the day, but I never really knew what to buy when I was out at the store. I'd just grab something and hope for the best, just based on whether or not I liked the label. Then I found First Leaf. They match wines to your tastes and send them right to your door. First Leaf delivers premium wines straight to my door every month. All I had to do was answer a quick quiz about my preferences, and now they send me personalized selections I'm guaranteed to love. No more guesswork, no more settling. Every box comes with easy-to-follow tasting notes and pairing suggestions, which simultaneously educates me about wine while also making me look very fancy and like I'm in a higher tax bracket than I really am. My favorite part about First Leaf is that they work directly with wineries, which means I get access to award-winning bottles, including wines I can't find at my local store at prices well below retail. Better wine for less money is kind of a no-brainer. Stop settling for wines that don't quite hit the mark. Head to tryfirstleaf.com/haunted to sign up, and you'll get 50% off your first box plus free shipping for an entire year. That's tryfirstleaf.com/haunted. Tryfirstleaf.com/haunted. And now back to your regularly scheduled haunting. So let's begin with part 1, the Western Front. France officially entered World War I, also known as the Great War, on August 3, 1914. Just 3 days later, German troops first began crossing over the French-Belgium border, with plans to force France into a quick surrender. Germany's strategy, called the Schleifenplan, was to march toward Paris in a giant arc, encircle the French army, and strong-arm them into defeat in just 6 weeks. Germany could never have predicted just how spectacularly their plan would fail. Not only did Germany end up losing the war, but what was supposed to be a 6-week blitz turned into a grueling 4-year stalemate, where both German and French fighters found themselves dying at a rate of 70,000 soldiers per month in some of the most deplorable conditions imaginable. Part of the reason why neither side could ever gain meaningful ground during those 4 years was due to the implementation of something called trench warfare. Most of the fighting took place on what is now known as the Western Front, which included rural sections of the French countryside on the northeastern border of the country. The French Western Front consisted of wide-open pasture lands, broken up by patches of woods, and the occasional farmhouse or barn. With nowhere to hide from the newly developed rapid-fire machine guns and long-range artillery, both sides were forced to dig down into the battlefield for protection instead of charging across it to confront the enemy face-to-face. What do you guys know about trench warfare, if anything?
I read All Quiet on the Western Front.
I was about to ask.
Yes, I remember next to nothing about it, but I have read it. It's in my brain somewhere, and that is about it.
trench warfare, I think because of how dramatic it is. I've seen a lot of war movies that depict trench warfare, and it looks pretty fucking terrible. I mean, you're in a hole covered in shit and piss, and trench foot is happening all the time. Like your boots are wet, your clothes are made out of fucking wool. They don't have Gore-Tex. It's winter in Western Europe. Shit's cold as fuck. It's snowing. And yeah, you're just like crawling around like essentially like sewer water or frozen corpses, you know? And then they would like send people in waves forward across like the minefields or whatever. And people are just getting mowed down by artillery. Yeah, just like mass death and disease and really dark times. But then also like every once in a while, like you take a picture of your girl out of your helmet and you like think, when I get out of here, I'm going to see my girl.
Yeah. The spirit of human persistence and perseverance knows no bounds. These were really terrible conditions. Absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit about them in a second. And through it all, people were living in these conditions for 4 years, just trying to make it out alive, trying to get back to their families, like you said. And part of me wonders if that is why this area is so haunted. Not just because people died there in waves, but also maybe because people up until their very last moments were trying so hard to not die. That's kind of the nature of war, right? It's not a situation where maybe like in a hospital, hospitals can still be haunted. There's definitely still people that die there that don't want to die. But there's also the fair share of people who are on hospice or have made peace, right? They know what's coming. Whereas in war, it's a large population of very young people who have their whole lives ahead of them. So they're so much more motivated to not leave this plane of existence, which I don't know, maybe might explain some of the ghost sightings we're going to get into. Trench warfare was absolutely brutal. Trenches regularly flooded, leaving soldiers standing in stagnant water for days, which led to infections like trench foot. Rats and lice were also present everywhere, feeding on not just food scraps, but also on the corpses of the dead. Since exiting the trenches meant immediate death by enemy weaponry, dead soldiers often had to stay where they fell, meaning soldiers were essentially forced to live and fight from within muddy, wet ditches next to the stinking, bloated corpses of their friends as rats picked away at the rotting flesh. Disease ran rampant through this environment. Basic hygiene was nearly non-existent, food was both scarce and contaminated, and explosions rocked through the environment day and night, resulting in what would later be named shell shock. Cassie, can you describe what you're looking at here in this black and white clip?
It's nothing good. Lots of explosions, soldiers in helmets. Is that a cannon setting off? Cannon. I don't know much about weapons. I'm learning. A lot of teamwork. Hey, here's a silver lining. These guys are working together. Lots of teamwork.
Toxic positivity. We're all about toxic positivity on this podcast. That is our entire thing is like, oh, you're possessed? Well, at least you have an excuse for why you were acting so embarrassingly at work yesterday. It's not your fault. It's the demon inside you. Yeah. Toxic positivity. We need it sometimes just to get through. So yeah, maybe the positives are the spirit of human persistence and teamwork is definitely ever present in this clip. It's very violent and very brutal, and that's why people are so fascinated with World War I. Just because this was the kind of transitionary period in warfare where we had come from a period of time where we did not have such high-tech weaponry, and then all of a sudden we have a war, and all of this very fast, very powerful gunfire, grenades, bombs, mines, everything is being thrown into what is predominantly a flat stretch of land. I don't know if you guys have any commentary about the actual environment that the video takes place in. It's so flat. It's countryside, so there's really nowhere to hide. I have also sent you guys a quick clip of the result of shell shock, which is a term that was coined after World War I because of the environment and how devastating and traumatic it was for people. A lot of people needed psychological care after exiting the war.
Wow. So the first gentleman they're showing, he is struggling to walk. That really surprised me, that it's showing like what a physical toll. Not only is it mental, but like their mental state is affecting. He can't even walk.
It almost looks like if I saw someone like this out in public, I would think perhaps that they were on like some sort of drug or that they were physically disabled, like they had been born with some sort of like neurological disease or something.
I'm glad you guys are both hitting on the physical aspect of shell shock, because what's interesting about this was like one of the first actual large-scale studies done on the effects of war on people who survive it. And so at first it does look like, oh, maybe this person was shot in the leg and so now he can't walk right, or maybe this person got trench foot and now, I don't know, they can't bend their tendons or whatever the case may be. But actually, what doctors discovered is that all of these physical, very physical, like visibly physical ailments were being caused by psychological damage, which now we all understand this, right? That like psychological damage causes very real physical effects for people. It's not just in your head, quote unquote, like it rewires the way you think, the way you talk, the way your personality is. But this was like the first time people were discovering this, which is kind of crazy. And so we have a lot of footage of these effects as well. And then the last video I want you guys to watch, I do want you to watch this one with sound. So this video was uploaded by a user to YouTube going by the name r/saint, and it's called Realistic World War I Battle Sounds. And this is a soundscape that was created to help people understand why the effects of shell shock were so devastating, because it wasn't just about what they were witnessing and the conditions they were living in. It was also about constant noise that they could not escape from. So if you guys can just push play on this and listen to, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds of the noise and then describe it.
It almost sounds like, not to piece max it or anything, but it almost sounds like rain on a tin roof or something, just like a constant percussion. And then beneath that is like a wailing, like a human wailing sound, just like, and I can see now why in movies it's always like, they're always like, hey, I need you to go west and get that, and they're yelling and it's so loud and it's always something really simple. They're saying like 4 words or something, like some sort of code or whatever. It's never like, hey, if you can think about it, once this, stops over there, go north 30 clicks and then meet me here. It's like very, very simple. And yeah, I guess it would just be because it's so confusing.
This soundscape that was created, which I'm so glad someone made it because it really like helps drive the point home. I can see why so many people returning from World War I would have trouble adjusting to what is a quiet lifestyle by comparison.
Yeah, totally. I was also going to say that like the noise is so constant that it almost like turns into like white noise. Like it almost sounds like when you put your ear to a shell and you like hear the ocean, but it's like a million times louder than that and just like constant. So yeah, that's really funny, Nat, that you said that. It sounds kind of peaceful, like rain on a tin roof, but it's like strange. It's like amplified by a million. I'm never gonna say I'm overstimulated with sound ever again after hearing that. Like, no, my problems are not that big.
By the time the war finally ended, France had suffered an almost unimaginable loss. Roughly 1.3 million soldiers were killed, the vast majority of them on the Western Front. The average age of a French soldier was just 24 years old. Entire generations of young men were wiped out in fields, forests, and rural villages that had once been quiet stretches of countryside, transforming the beautiful pastoral landscapes into sites of mass graves and zigzagging trench systems. When the fighting finally stopped in 1918, the land didn't return to normal. In fact, some areas were so devastated, so saturated with human remains, unexploded shells, and chemical contamination that they were declared permanently uninhabitable. The French government designated these regions as the Zone Rouge or Red Zone, places where the damage ran so deep that the land itself was considered too dangerous and too haunted by war to ever have people live in again. I'm getting married later this year, and I have a secret. I don't fit into my wedding dress. Look, as someone who works for a living, sometimes my only joy each day is washing down a fistful of candy with a swig of root beer and a latte. But I'm not in my 20s anymore, and my bad habits are catching up to me. So as part of an effort to reduce my sugar cravings and speed up my metabolism so I can feel good on my wedding day, I'm using VERACITY Metabolism Ignite, a plant-based, caffeine-free supplement designed to support weight loss naturally. This podcast is sponsored by VERACITY. Welcome to an all-natural way to reduce cravings, get energized, and sharpen your focus. VERACITY is revolutionizing health by tackling the root cause of so many issues: metabolism. With VERACITY's drug-free, clinically proven, and doctor-formulated solutions, you can support your body's needs to live your healthiest life. When your blood sugar spikes and crashes, everything suffers. Your energy, your mood, your cravings. VERACITY's Metabolism Ignite helps your body process glucose more efficiently, improves insulin sensitivity, and keeps those spikes from happening in the first place. Metabolism Ignite has sold out 10 times for a reason. There are no side effects and no allergens, which means there's no reason not to try it. So before Metabolism Ignite sells out again, control your cravings and boost your energy the natural way. Head to veracityhealth.co and use code HAUNTED for up to 65% off your order. Once again, that's VERACITY health.co for up to 65% off. And make sure you use our promo code HAUNTED so they know we sent you. And now back to your regularly scheduled haunting. So if you guys want to open that PDF I sent you in the text, the very first image, I put some text over it, but you can see what this landscape looks like now today. Nature finds a way, right? So vegetation is persisting. It's finding a way to make it through all of the pollution. Maybe I'll start with Cassie. Cassie, if you want to describe the landscape, and then I'll ask Nat to describe the signage.
It's slightly hilly. It's not completely flat. There are trees and shrubbery, it looks like, and it's mostly green. I mean, there's some brown, but yeah, it's remarkable how much life there is here.
Nat, can you describe some of the signage?
Wow, this is wow, it's just amazing how much of the trench has survived. You would expect after more than 100 years, the land would have kind of swallowed this back up or covered up a little bit. And all these signs say, I don't speak French, so I know I would absolutely butcher this, but I'm assuming it says danger. It says danger de mort, death, domaine militaire, defense d'entrer or something. There's fences, danger, caution signs. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be dangerous.
For sure. And there is a sign on there that says village, and I don't speak French either, so apologies to French listeners, but the translation is destroyed village. So there will literally be signs along this cordoned off, fenced off area that you're not supposed to go into, and it'll say what it is. So sometimes it'll say destroyed village. Sometimes it'll just say landmines past this point, or possibility of death, bombs, unexploded bombs maybe past this point, danger, no access to public. And then if you go to the maps that I've put in that PDF, slides 3 and 4 are maps of the Zone Rouge, because it has kind of changed over time. There are some areas where the fighting was so concentrated that we really cannot enter even still today. And then as you get kind of away from those red zones, you see there's yellow and there's green. And as we get closer to the gray color, it gets less dramatic for the most part. So Cassie, can you describe maybe the shape of the red areas? Is there anything you notice about it?
Yeah, it's like an elongated U shape at the border of France and Belgium. There's breaks in it, and it is wider on the left side than it is on the right side.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting about it is that it is not all connected, right? It's non-contiguous. So there will be a region that you absolutely cannot enter. You're not allowed to go into there. But then there's a little bit of a break where it's like, okay, you can't live here, but you could go on a tour here maybe, as we're going to find out in a little bit. And then you enter another red zone, another do not enter zone. So it is kind of interesting how it's broken up. Part 2, Zone Rouge. After World War I, a total of 9 villages within the Zone Rouge were classified as villages détruits, or communities that had been so completely destroyed that they were never rebuilt. The Zone Rouge itself originally covered around 460 square miles of northeastern France, and the post-war environment was eerie, to say the least. Forests had been reduced to blackened stumps. The ground was pockmarked with deep shell craters, and entire hills had been reshaped by relentless artillery fire. Decades later, parts of the landscape remain eerily barren, with twisted metal, fractured concrete, and fragments of war still surfacing through the soil. In an article for the BBC, journalist Melissa Bannigan visited the Zone Rouge with a tour guide. She describes how after a short period of rainfall, her tour guide reached down into the soil and pulled up a twisted and rusty military-issued fork. Later, she described seeing scattered dog tags throughout the forest. The reason these villages were never cleaned up or rebuilt comes down to what was left behind. The land was saturated with unexploded munitions, buried trench systems, and even the remains of those who died there. Heavy metals like lead and arsenic from shells and chemical weapons seeped into the soil and groundwater, making farming and even prolonged human exposure too dangerous to withstand. In many areas, the destruction was so complete that bodies were never recovered, effectively leaving entire regions as mass graves. Even still today, there are occasionally articles about World War I skeletons resurfacing in the woods of the Western Front due to animal activity or weather events. I found this to be extremely interesting because World War I was so long ago. It was so long ago. You know, we're talking 1916, 17, 18. What do you mean we still haven't been able to bury people? There are just piles. Like when I say mass graves, I'm not talking about we dug a big trench with a bulldozer and pushed bodies in because it was too overwhelming and covered them up. People fell where they died and they stayed there. And in some cases, the skeletons are still there. And obviously over so much time passing now, I mean, we're talking about 100 years, there's skeletons that have been covered up, or maybe because of rainfall, they kind of slip into the trenches and then maybe some mudslide happens. And so there's still these skeletons occasionally being recovered by hikers, by people that have the job by the government to go in here every once in a while and try to assist with cleaning. But I mean, that's crazy to me. I don't know about you guys, but I've never thought of that, because usually when you're talking about an unearthed skeleton, we're talking about something 500 years ago, like archaeology, right? This is not that long ago.
Kind of reminds me of the episode we did. I think it was the Donner Party episode we did. We were talking about the Oregon Trail, or maybe it was like the Pacific Trail. And they were talking about how like every 100 feet, there's an unmarked grave because of just how many people were dying on this trail. And people would camp off of the trail at night. So you would take your covered wagon and, you know, just go like 50, 100 meters off of the trail so you would be safe or whatever. And have a little campfire, make your food, whatever, and then head back out on the trail the next day. And to this day, there are people who go out looking for these old antique campsites where pioneers left behind forks and knives, and there's broken dishes and, you know, whatever they were offloading. They're like, okay, we don't need this anymore. Get it off of the wagon because we brought too much stuff and we've already lost like 20% of the people who were alive and we're going to use this. You know, people would just offload shit. And so it's kind of reminding me of that. Very haunted.
Yeah, very haunted. To me, also very unexpected. And maybe I'm just naive, but I would think that since France was part of the team that won World War I, right? Like at some point when everyone has cleared out of this area, I just naively perhaps assumed the government would come in and try to recover bodies and take dog tags so that they could find next of kin and notify them. But that's not what happened at all. I mean, even still today, like you pointed out, Nat, in some of those pictures, the trench systems are still there. This like winding maze of trenches that actually went from the Belgian coast all the way to to like the Swiss mountains. It was huge, connected trench systems going all the way through 3 different countries. And then in France, it's still there. I don't know why. That just like blows my mind.
I was going to say, like there's an opportunity. They could clean it up so you could walk it and make it like a sacred trail. Like there's all kinds of trails that are all over Europe that like pilgrims will take that are like, oh, I'm walking in like Saint whatever's path, like who had their own passion, their own suffering. And I mean, maybe it's fucked, but I actually feel like that would be a great way to educate people and have people remember the fallen soldiers, is to turn those trenches into a walking path so people could walk across it and see what it was like.
Yeah, definitely. And I know exactly what you're talking about because I have family living in the Philippines. And when I went to visit them, we did the Bataan Death March and they were all stoked about it. So they're taking us down what to me is like extremely macabre and dark and like so somber and sad. But they were just like so excited to show us
The
like,
history.
no,
Yeah.
look, this is how far it was. And these are the conditions they lived in. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, this is horrifying. But I think when you live in an environment where something bad happened, like, I don't know, maybe New Yorkers can kind of relate to this. It sort of over time just becomes part of the landscape. And so maybe that's why some of these areas have not been bothered to be restored, because you just over time, it's like less special to you. You're just like, this is something that happened. It's reality. We have to push forward. I do hope that in 700 years, when the pollution has died down, I think that's a great idea that they should actually set up something to show how long it was so people can walk it. I think that would be amazing. Now, the pictures, obviously, I've shown you some pictures of what this looks like. So there are some areas that you can walk it, but nothing formal for sure. Because of the mess the war left behind in this region, the French government stepped in and began purchasing the most dangerous land from its former owners. Entire communities that had once lived and worked these fields were permanently displaced and prohibited from returning to their homes. So, the government voted to buy the unusable land back in hopes that the displaced French citizens could move on to a new town with the money. After purchasing the land, the government cordoned off miles and miles and miles with fencing, barbed wire, and a variety of signs with slogans like Zone Rouge, dangerous, do not enter the Zone Rouge, unexploded bombs, threat of death, bombs past this point. Efforts to reclaim parts of Zone Rouge have been ongoing for over a century. One of the most persistent practices is known as iron harvesting or shell harvesting, where farmers and cleanup crews continue to uncover and remove artillery shells, grenades, bombs, landmines, and mortars from the soil year after year. Even today, thousands of shells are still recovered annually. Despite these efforts, some estimates suggest it could take anywhere from 300 to 700 years before certain areas are fully safe for human use again. So in the PDF I sent you, if you just want to go to the final 2 pictures, and Cassie, if you can describe the first picture, and then Nat, if you can describe the second picture.
So this looks like a giant metal bowl full of bullets, and they just massive. It looks like a big bowl of soup, but nothing that you would want to eat.
Yeah, this looks, these are giant artillery shells. This is what you put into, I believe, a cannon to shoot out. I can't remember what they're called. There's different ones, but I think what they were using in World War I would have been like single shell. Like you kind of have to load it, fire in the hole, whatever, move back. It takes off. Maybe they call them mortars. I can't remember. I think that's what it's called. It's like a giant bullet, but you load it up in a huge like cannon looking thing with the big wheels on the side. And when the gun goes forward, the cannon kind of moves backwards. If I'm remembering correctly, the tip of this, so like the body looks like a torpedo or something. It looks like like a dick. I don't know how else to describe this. It's very like phallic.
It's very phallic, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then the top is like this little tiny pyramid thing. And I think the dick is like full of gunpowder, and maybe like the little pyramid thing is actually the thing, the projectile or whatever. And I don't know. Like, I know in the Civil War, some of these would explode and it was like a grape shot. Like tons of small projectiles would come out in all directions. And then there's some where it's like, it just blows like a huge hole through whatever it is. And so, yeah, it looks like those are all different sizes. So I'm assuming some of those are like the kind that can just like put a hole in like a tank or something, like anti-tank perhaps, and then maybe some of them are designed to be like grape shot, kind of like if there's like a bunch of men running towards you to slow them down. So it's not necessarily going to knock all of them down or like pinpoint one. It's more of just like a spray to like mow.
Pretty crazy that, again, thousands of these types of bombs are still being recovered. These munitions, this lead harvesting, quote unquote, or iron harvesting that happens, it happens as the furthest areas from the red zone have been getting cleaned up over the decades. So the areas that are yellow, that is what got cleaned up first. And then the orange is still in process and red has not even been touched yet. So as they kind of make their way into the center of where the most devastation happened, they find in the ground all of these bombs and shells and artillery. And it is very, very eerie that you could just walk out there, reach into the soil, and you either get a dog tag, a fork, or a helmet, or a skeleton, or a bomb. Again, to me, this is just like so insane.
It's like the worst kind of surprise box. Those are in right
Yes,
now.
is it like a blind box?
Though?
Yeah.
Like are some of these munitions unstable, but they would like explode?
Yes. So that's why they won't. That's the main reason why they won't let people live in the red zone, because as they have these cleanup crews coming through, it's like part bomb squad, part hazmat situation where when they do find one of these bombs that is intact, they have to make sure that it's not active. And so they have to call in like a special team. So that's part of the reason why it's taking so long to go through this too, because you have to do that every single time you find something that could be live.
Also, I feel like they could have been a little more serious with the signage, like the one where it's just like destroyed village in French. Like if I happened upon that, I'd be like,
I'd go in.
Cute village. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like they need to get the signage of when they do nuclear waste, where it's like all that scary
Chernobyl.
imagery. Yeah, where it's like skeletons and like death and just creepy. I feel like they need to kind of go hard in that.
I agree.
Yeah.
You know what? It's so
Yeah.
funny you say that. I was having the same thought where I was looking at it and I didn't know what it said at first because I don't speak French. So the one that says destroyed village, I was like, oh, that just must be the name of this village. I wonder why this is popping up when I Google Zone Rouge. It looks fine. And then I was like Googling village destruit or whatever it says. And it was like, this is a specific government label that was assigned to villages that have been completely razed to the ground during World War I and are no longer habitable. And I was like, never mind.
I took 3 years of French in high school, and if I ran into that sign, I'd be like, guys, I got this. It's a cute village. Like, I probably wouldn't even pronounce the name right, but I'd be like, village, clearly.
I'm thinking if this stuff is like so valued, though, there's got to be treasure hunters who go out there and collect it, right?
Most of our ghost stories that we are actually about to get into right now, I have one more paragraph and then we'll get into it. Most of the ghost stories come from people who are treasure hunting, people who are legend tripping, and there's also just trespassers. So that's where most of our ghost stories are coming from. However, again, we have to address that Zone Rouge is a spectrum because over time, there are certain areas that get classified as yellow instead of red or orange instead of red. And some of those regions either have scheduled tours that you can pay and be a part of, and they'll take you through areas where you're not going to explode, or they will take you through, in the yellow areas, there are a couple of museums that you can go to that has memorabilia and photos of what it used to look like and what it looks like now. Okay, so today, the Zone Rouge exists in a strange liminal state. Some of the destroyed villages are maintained as memorial sites and even have symbolic mayors assigned to them despite having no residents. Visitors can walk through marked paths where streets and buildings once stood, guided by plaques that outline what used to be there. Other areas are open for limited tours by appointment only, while still other areas remain strictly off limits due to lingering danger. Despite the risk, people do occasionally trespass in restricted areas, and that's where we get many of the best ghost stories from the Zone Rouge. So I'm going to send you guys a little video before we actually get into the ghost stories. This is kind of a short episode. We're almost done. And somebody went into this region and did this amazing vlog from there. They were filming exactly what they were seeing. It's called Zone Rouge from the French perspective, and it was uploaded by Anna's Burning Curiosity. And I left a comment on it. So if you guys go look at this video, I already commented on it being like, I want to interview you. Tell me everything about what you saw and what you experienced. But this is fairly recent. It's from a year ago. And if you skip to maybe like the 3-minute, 30-second mark, that's where it really starts to get good.
It honestly, it just looks like a bike path. It looks like a bike path. But then, yeah, wow. On the side, it's showing like a cross, like a little memorial cross someone's made with a couple pieces of wood. And then there's like a really rusted old World War II era helmet on top of the cross. Just sitting on top of it, it looks like maybe like a grave someone made. And then now she's walking through the trenches, and the trenches, there's like, they're in like this weird way, kind of beautiful. Like it sort of looks like Lord of the Rings or something, because there's moss on all of these hilly little tiny trails, you know, and cute, like almost like little steps made into the side of this tiny little hobbit's trail covered in moss. But then, yeah, knowing that this is where so much death and destruction occurred makes it really creepy. And on the screen, it says, keep away from the water here. Chemical bombs have contamination. The water in the soil is contaminated.
And it's like kind of foggy and misty out. So like, I feel like if you just Googled spooky woods, this is exactly what it would look like.
Right.
Now she's coming up on like a kind of a structure that is covered with moss, but the juxtaposition of like nature over this like concrete, I think, is what I'm looking at. And she's going in a cave. We are entering a cave. Oh my gosh, this is very as above, so below right now. Brave woman, Anna's burning curiosity. She does have a burning curiosity. Her username does not lie. Okay, all right, now it's like pitch black. She's got a flashlight, and there's some structures that we're looking at. Terrifying. She's entering like a very claustrophobic hallway that's probably about 4 feet wide.
They're like tunnels. They're tunnels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, and then you can see a little hole, probably where they could peek out and see what was going on.
It's pretty eerie, and I just want to talk to this girl so bad. This girl is such a badass. Thank you, Anna's burning curiosity, for going to this area and filming it, because it was crazy. I was thinking, there's for sure got to be footage, modern footage, and there really wasn't. There was a BBC article that I read, and then I quoted a piece from it earlier, but those are photos, you know? So we have a lot of photos. There's, you know, maybe some like Nat Geo documentaries, but that is not as real to me as when somebody is just a regular person going into this type of location. I just think it's so creepy. So now we're getting into part 3, the hauntings, the best for last. So first, let me tell you which villages were completely destroyed. There were 9 of them. I'm going to put their names up on the screen right now. They are obviously written in French because these are all French villages, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher these to death, but I'm going to give it a shot. We've got Fleury devant Douaumont. We have Beaumont in Verdenoy, Bezenvaux, Cumières-les-Morts Home, and Dumamont, Haumont Prez, something or other. I mean, it goes on. These are like 3 words separated by hyphens for almost every single one. So these are the villages that were completely destroyed, and these are our paranormal hotspots. These are the areas where people claim to hear creepy things, see creepy things, feel creepy things, get things thrown at them. Almost like there's this combination of like very sad spirits and angry spirits.
I was going to say, my 3 years of French in high school have led me to this moment. Cumières-les-Morts Homme. I know that means dead man. Mort Homme, because Homme is man, and Mort is dead. I believe that means dead man.
Dead man's village.
So proud of myself for that callback.
Wow. Oh my God. See, I should have just asked you to read them instead of embarrassing myself by attempting.
Yeah. One thing to remember with French, this is like one of the very little things I remember. If there's a vowel at the end, you don't pronounce it. Watch this be wrong. So like pretty much like a safe bet is like just never pronounce the final letter of any word, and it'll probably be right.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. That's a good tip. Thank you for that.
Of course.
I'm sure I'm going to immediately forget it, because unfortunately, I'm going to have to say where some of these hauntings took place. So it's going to be Americanized. So, in the Verdun section of the Meuse region, particularly around Fort de Dumamont, a paranormal investigation group conducted an overnight visit using devices like EMF detectors and a spirit box. During their investigation, they reported capturing the word Nein in German, meaning no, through the device along with the sound of a whistle on audio recording. When reviewing photographs that they had taken at the site later, they claimed to see shapes resembling skulls, faces, and what appeared to be a floating ghostly helmet. One participant in the investigation also reported experiencing sudden paralysis in their arm shortly after leaving the site, which they interpreted to mean that they were experiencing what some soldier must have felt in that moment. Like maybe the soldier had been shot in the arm and bled out there, and that's what they were experiencing because they were particularly susceptible to the paranormal.
My dumb ass would be like, 9 what? 9 of what? 9, 10? He's telling us a number.
Part of me wonders, was every German soldier super pumped up to go to war? Or were some of them like, fuck, man, this is just a job. Like, I am here against my will, you know? And that almost makes it even more haunted because it's like, imagine you were the person who really didn't want to be going to war and you knew you were the bad guy.
Yeah, I think anytime there's a draft, you're going to get people that do not want to be there. I do think that militaries in general do a really good job of brainwashing new recruits into not wanting to desert because you don't want somebody there necessarily that's going to hinder whatever your mission is. I don't know. I'm sure there were people that didn't want to be there but felt like they had to be. I'm sure there were people that didn't want to be there at first and then got brainwashed into being there. And I'm sure there were also people that were just like sadists that really wanted to know what it felt like to kill somebody. And then there's probably also people that are just super patriotic and think that what they're doing is correct. Yeah, I'm sure it takes all kinds for sure. But I think that to me, if I was in a French region where I knew what the German military had been and where they had lost a war, and then I hear coming through the spirit box, I'd be like, okay, this is for sure the ghost of a fallen soldier, right? Like, for sure, because why would someone be speaking German in a rural countryside through a spirit box if they were not? So I feel like to me it almost gives it more credibility. But that's not the only experience that people have had in this area. Visitors walking through the forests and battlefields around Verdun have reported a persistent feeling of being surrounded by something unseen. One account describes a person repeatedly experiencing this sensation while exploring the area, including an instance where they became lost in the woods and described the experience as deeply unsettling, almost like they were being stalked by an unseen force and deliberately led off the path. The same individual described the entire Verdun battlefield as carrying the presence of what they referred to as unquiet souls, describing the entire time that they were in the region as being extremely quiet and yet at the same time extremely loud. And so that's what made it so unsettling because they're walking through this region and they know they're not actually hearing anything, but at the same time it's like something just below the decibel of human hearing is like screaming in their face. Almost like the scars of war, the sounds of war are still there on some level just beneath the surface, bubbling up as soon as someone living comes into the area, which to me, like, that gives me the chills for sure.
Totally. I'm like a big believer that like energy can imprint itself on a location. And it's like, yeah, those soldiers must have just been constantly feeling like there is someone out there trying to get me and I can't see them. So that is like mirroring what those soldiers must have been feeling. And then even the noise too, like there was 4 years of just that constant noise. Like I feel like that imprints itself and there's like remnants that can still definitely be felt even today.
Like the people in the trenches 100 years ago felt haunted, like as somebody watching me. Is there somebody sneaking up on me right now to slit my throat? And
yeah, all of those emotions, they still come through. Now, here's a conspiracy theory thought exercise. Do we think these areas are not being cleaned up quickly because of limitations on funding? Or do we think that they're not
Because
being
they're
cleaned up
cursed?
quickly because they're waiting for these areas, for the stone tape theory, for the electromagnetic disturbance, for the sounds that have imprinted there and the feelings that have imprinted there to slowly wear off?
I would say a healthy bit of both.
I think too, like culturally, when you've lost so many people somewhere, unless there's like a task force or something that's like created just for the pursuit of cleaning that particular area, it's like, I don't know that anybody even really wants the job. Like, I don't think there was anyone volunteering, like, let me go to Sandy Hook. Like, I'll handle it, guys. Like, so maybe it was just like that afterwards. Like, everybody's fucking shell shocked. Everybody is wanting to move on with their lives. Everyone's lost a brother. Everyone's lost a father, a cousin, a son. And it's almost just like, okay, like, move on. Like, I don't want to think about that anymore. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's in the countryside. It's pasture fields anyways. Like, okay, yeah, a few people are going to lose their house, but it's not me. I live in Paris and I'm ready to be done with it.
At the site known as Tranchée des Bayonnettes, near the village of Dumont, there's a long-standing legend that French soldiers were killed instantly during shelling and buried upright in their trench with their rifles still in hand. The story led to the idea that the soldiers remain there, even in death, their spirits still standing at their watch. And the site has been memorialized with inscriptions describing them as soldiers that are, quote, sleeping standing up, instead of describing them as deceased soldiers. After the war, excavations reportedly recovered multiple bodies from this trench in particular, with some reburied elsewhere and others left at the site, giving credence to the legend that had persisted for decades. So basically, there was always this legend that in this particular trench, it had been covered up because there were bodies of soldiers that had died on watch, and they had died where they were standing and just were propped up against the wall. And then their fellow soldiers had covered them with dirt or earth, but nobody knew for sure because, as with a lot of things that are really bad and negative and traumatic, sometimes stories can run wild, right? So nobody was ever really sure, is this an urban legend? Is it real? And finally, this particular area was excavated by the government, and they did find the bodies of French soldiers standing upright with their rifles. And people say that if you walk through this area, you can encounter the ghosts of these men, and they're not aware of you. So as you walk by, they will not turn to look at you. It's like they're still on high alert, adrenaline pumping, life or death scenario, holding their rifles, staring straight ahead on watch together.
Oh, that's so sad.
I mean, that to me is like so creepy, because we like to think that hopefully in death, the people who have suffered get some solace, and maybe they do. And this is just, to your point, Cassie, like an energy imprint, some sort of recording on the land itself. But it is scary to imagine that dying a traumatic death, and then even in death, you're not aware of what's going on around you, and you're still in that fight or flight.
Hopefully it's just like a part of them and a part of their energy that is like caught in the loop, and like the rest of their infinite soul is off and at peace. I hope.
Yeah, I hope.
I think now this might be triggering to some people, but we're also a paranormal podcast. So our job is to get haunted. So I have a thought. It's pretty haunted, and I'm going to share it with people right now. Okay. What if, because a part of you loses your humanity, like when you go to war, right? Like we talked about how it's just like you're killing other people who maybe a few years ago or even a few months ago you might have been doing business with. You might have been sitting in a cafe having a drink with this person, and now you're set on two sides of an imaginary line and told to kill each other. Maybe there's a part of your soul that just leaves, like you're just not even a human anymore, and then that's what you see when somebody's shell shocked, is like their physical body is still there, being puppeted by whatever electronic neurons are firing, but like that person's soul is gone, Maybe that's like what when someone's like, oh yeah, the ghosts are just still standing there with their rifles in hand. Maybe it's whatever the shell of that person left behind. It's not actually them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a piece of like in Harry Potter, where to make a Horcrux you have to like kill a person, and then a piece of your soul becomes like slightly separated from the rest of it, and you can rip off that piece of the soul and stick it in an object, so that way you can never truly die. Like you can have multiple of these pieces of your soul scattered around. Maybe that's based in some legends that have existed that may have a grain of truth to them. Yeah, maybe it's when you're in such a traumatic situation that you have to disassociate, maybe like a piece of whatever makes a person also disassociates, becomes dislodged, and ends up stuck in that place. At the German military cemetery of Neuville-Saint-Vaast in the Pas-de-Calais region of France, a teenager visiting the site took a photo on his phone and later noticed a human-like silhouette in the image that had not been visible at the time. The figure appeared to resemble a soldier, clad in World War I attire. The story circulated further when it was suggested that the figure resembled a member of a Scottish regiment, and attention was drawn to the presence of another nearby cemetery where soldiers from that regiment were buried. At a site known as the Calais Lighthouse, staff members have reported ongoing experiences of what they describe as an unseen presence within the building. These reports include hearing footsteps when no one else is present, seeing shadowy figures, and noticing white, veil-like shapes moving through the space. Some individuals have also reported hearing voices, and multiple staff members have stated that they felt as though they were not alone while inside the lighthouse. In the village of Nesle, there is a long-standing rumor that the local church is haunted. Witnesses have reported hearing the organ playing, despite the building being locked and empty at the time. There are also claims of sightings of a white, human-shaped silhouette inside the church that peers down from a window. These accounts have circulated locally for decades. In the village of Monk-Nortbecourt, a small rural property became the center of reports describing physical disturbances consistent with poltergeist activity. Residents claimed that stones were being thrown at them as they walked by, with at least one person reportedly injured badly enough to require hospital treatment. Neighbors also reported being struck by a variety of different objects, and local officials were said to have witnessed items such as fruit moving through the air by itself and furniture tipping over without explanation. In the forests near Orville, a legend tells of a man who would transform into a wolf every Saturday night after rolling in a specific muddy area known as the Mare aux Fées. In this form, he was said to steal sheep from nearby villages and bring them into the forest, where witches, fairies, and the devil would gather to cook and eat the animals. The story continues that the man was identified as a local farmer who was under demonic influence following World War I, and that a specific ritual involving striking an invisible body with a blade could break the transformation. According to the legend, the ritual was eventually performed successfully, and the paranormal activity in this village stopped. In the Vimy area of the Western Front, visitors have reported experiencing a strong sensation of not being alone while walking through the battlefield. One account describes a person spending several days in the area while camping and feeling as though there was a presence laying right next to their sleeping bag, despite no visible source. The experience was described as subtle but persistent enough throughout their visit. In the town of Fromelles, a battlefield guide recounted an experience involving a visitor who claimed to have the ability to perceive things others could not. During a visit to the most bloody part of the battlefield, the visitor reported seeing two soldiers present in the area standing with their weapons at attention. The guide later described the visitor's observations as unusually specific and accurate to the time period. In the Somme region, one individual described attempting to sleep inside a World War I cemetery during a warm night. After a short period of time, they reported feeling an intense and unexplained sense of fear that grew strong enough to force them to leave the area. They later slept nearby without issue once they had left the cemetery grounds. At Delville Wood, a young child visiting the area with their family repeatedly told their parents that there were, quote, men looking at them from the woods, despite no one else being visible. When asked to describe the men, the child said they looked like trees. Later, while visiting a museum, the child pointed to a mannequin dressed as a World War I soldier and identified it as matching the figures they had just seen in the forest. Also at Delville Wood, a visitor reported experiencing a physical sensation that began as numbness in their feet that gradually spread up their legs while walking through the memorial area. The sensation intensified as they moved closer to the monument and caused them to collapse briefly on the steps. The feelings subsided after they left the immediate area and did not return afterward. At Serre Road Cemetery No. 2, a visitor on a guided tour reported seeing a soldier sitting on the steps near a memorial stone. The figure was described as appearing dirty, with his head in his hands and looking downward. No one else in the group could see the figure. At Mametz Woods, visitors have described a consistent feeling of heaviness and stillness upon entering the edge of the forest. One account specifically describes the area as having an oppressive atmosphere that felt unwelcoming during multiple visits, including one at dusk. In the Contal-Maison region, near a sunken road cemetery, a visitor reported their car becoming stuck in mud and suddenly moving backwards onto the road without normal traction, as if being pulled by something. Following this, they described a series of unusual events involving the vehicle, including windows moving on their own, unexplained voices coming from inside the car, and the windshield wipers activating without input. The individual eventually sold the car, but not before reporting that the voices of World War I soldiers and the sound of artillery were coming from the radio every time they entered into the Zone Rouge. At Newfoundland Memorial Park, a visitor reported that their companion experienced a sudden and intense feeling of malevolence while inside the visitor center. The sensation became strongest while standing near a display case and stopped shortly after leaving the building. And again, near Verdun, local guides have reported seeing full-bodied apparitions of soldiers in World War I uniforms walking through wooded areas and along former trench lines. These figures are often described as carrying rifles and moving in formation or standing still as if on guard duty. Witnesses consistently report that the figures do not react to being seen and will disappear suddenly without warning. There are also repeated reports in this area of hearing gunfire, explosions, and shouted commands despite no military activity being present. In the destroyed village of Fleury-Devant-du-Moment, multiple visitors have reported hearing footsteps and movement in areas where no one else is present. Some have described hearing what sounds like soldiers marching or shifting positions in the ground. There are also accounts of faint music resembling early 20th century French military songs being heard in the area, particularly in the evening. These reports are often described alongside a noticeable drop in temperature and a strong feeling of fear. So I'm going to play for you guys one of the songs that people say they can hear in the Zone Rouge at night coming from the forest.
Oh, yay.
Oh my gosh, so creepy.
So I'm sending it to you right now. And I just want you to play it at a soft volume, close your eyes, and really imagine being in a completely devastated, toxic zone in the dark, in the forest, surrounded by miles of nothing. And this is what you hear in a distorted, echoey sound coming from deep within the woods. What would you do if you just heard that echoing through the woods while you're by yourself, trespassing on forbidden land?
Go home.
Okay, I get it now, French government. I will no longer trespass.
If it's the same cadence, if it's the delivery like that, I'd honestly be impressed. I would be like, you know what, Ghosts, this was a very well organized production. You guys were harmonized very well together. And, I'm a theater kid, so I see you and I respect it. That's crazy. That song though is about that battle. Was that a song that people would sing while they're there at that specific battle? That's crazy. That's like if people at 9/11 are are in the Twin Towers, planes have hit and we will fall to our deaths. What do you mean they fucking wrote that out there while they were in the trenches? Okay, so maybe men just do like going to war. It makes them want to sing songs and shit. I don't know. Now I don't know anymore.
Art will persist no matter what.
Yes. That is the takeaway. All of the stories of war that we have covered over the years, the ghosts of war. We've talked about the war in Afghanistan. We've talked a little bit about 9/11. Donner Party, which in many ways does feel like war when you're just abandoned somewhere and you have to eat each other to survive. It's stories of human survival are terrible and you would never wish that on anyone. It is also hard to walk away from these stories without feeling the toxic positivity of human persistence. We don't want to die. That is the main driving force for the vast majority of humans. We are trying very hard to stay alive. And so imagining being in that situation, you're in unimaginable conditions. You're having the worst, most traumatic time of your life. If you do survive, you're going to be forever changed and scarred by what you've gone through. If not physically, then emotionally. If not emotionally, then physically. Maybe both. And all you can do, you don't have TV, you don't have electronics. And so what do you have? You can sing. You sing to keep up morale. Now to imagine hearing that echoing through a forest, I don't know. know, that one got me when I was listening to that one. I was like, oh my God. Now I have just a couple to read for you before I ask for your final thoughts. In forested areas of the Meuse region, there are reports of shadow-like figures appearing near shell craters and former trench systems. Witnesses describe these figures as particularly formed or emerging from the ground, as if the shadows of corpses clawing their way back to the sunlight. Some accounts specifically mention figures appearing in locations where unrecovered human remains are believed to still be buried. These sightings are often brief and occur without any sound. In parts of Somme, where heavy fighting also took place, there are reports of civilian apparitions. Witnesses have described seeing children or families near the remains of old farm sites and village foundations. These figures are typically seen at a distance and disappear when approached. Some reports have also described figures appearing in areas where structures once stood, despite there being no buildings remaining. In regions of Pas de Calais and Nord, hikers and locals have reported unexplained physical disturbances, including knocking sounds coming from deep within the ground or from within wooded areas, as if there's something inside of the trees. There are also accounts of small objects like stones being thrown without a visible source. Some individuals report becoming disoriented or suddenly feeling the need to leave the area without a clear reason, particularly when trying to walk off of the established paths. Across multiple areas of the Zone Rouge, there are consistent reports of what are described as time slip experiences. Visitors have claimed that the surrounding environment suddenly becomes quiet, followed by the sounds of marching, artillery, voices speaking in different languages, or singing associated with World War I. These experiences often result in the person feeling disoriented and then later looking at their watch after the experience ends, only to find that hours of time have passed. Across other parts of the Zone Rouge, particularly near Verdun and surrounding forested areas, visitors and local guides have reported hearing what sounds like World War I era military music with no visible source. I'm just going to send you one more song. It's an 1800s French military song that has also been reported in some of these forested areas. Almost like there's overlapping hauntings occurring here, and we can tell what era the haunting is from based on the music. This one's a little more upbeat, right? This one I think is less scary than the first one, but still definitely unsettling to imagine just walking through an abandoned area and all of a sudden you hear a chorus of 1,000 soldiers being like, I like onions, onions are so good. Like, I don't know if you guys were looking at the translation of that song, but it's about onions. Yeah.
Yeah, it says, a single onion fried in oil changes us into lions. No onions for the Austrians. No onions for those dogs.
Which story, which haunting, which aspect of this story are you going to be thinking about as you go to sleep tonight?
I would really love to speak with the guy with the story where he was like, it was a warm summer night. I went to go sleep in the cemetery. I felt really unsettled in the cemetery. When I went to sleep not in the cemetery, I was fine. I would love to speak with this gentleman.
You're like,
wow,
sir, tell me more.
Yeah.
Right.
What else have you figured out?
Right. And then I love the haunted car. I love, like, I've heard in the past several years, like, you know, getting these stories of like when a car is haunted, and that seems so rare to me. I had a creepy real photo sent to me where this person said that their sister's Jeep, it would sometimes like throw itself in neutral, and then she had a dream that she died in the Jeep. So she like was about to sell it, and she was taking photos to sell the Jeep. Like, I can't keep this car. And there's like a picture, like in the picture, there looks like a hand coming out of the front window. And so like the concept of a haunted car is so crazy to me. It feels so rare. And like if you just were trying to turn on the radio and like, you know, put on some tunes, and then those songs started playing, and like, or it played like war sounds, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is so insane to me. So those two really stuck with me. Yep.
What about you, Nat?
I mean, the whole thing, that will fuel me for the next few years, I feel like. Like, I will have content for my mind to wander for years based off of that. The concept of a haunted Jeep is really funny to me because Jeeps are like goofy cars to me. They're like a golden retriever of a car. You know, like people give each other ducks and it's like, I drive this car because I just love nature. And like they always have like a take it easy, bro type shit on the back, or like life is good, or like 26.2, like I just run, or like I can't wait to go to church, or like take my kid to soccer. I don't know. I just feel like that would be the last car that would be fucking trying to steal your soul.
Yeah.
What do I know? Great episode, Allie. Fantastic. Very haunting. Perfect mix of weird, creepy history, true stories, and the paranormal creeps and hauntings. Loved it.
Thank you. I think the one that I'm going to have trouble not thinking about tonight in my sleep is the accounts of the sounds, like clawing sounds coming from within trees. And then the little kid that said they could see men in the woods and that the men looked like trees. And then when they went to the museum, they were like, the men looked like that. And it's a mannequin, like a faceless mannequin in a World War I military. And it kind of makes me think, because in World War I, France was allied with Russia. And we did an episode a number of years ago where we talked about this concept of rusalki, which is a female spirit that can manifest as trees. But I don't know. It seems interesting that there would be noises within trees in an area where it seems sort of like a blend of folklore, I guess is what I'm trying to say, based on what type of people were dying in this area. And so that stood out to me. And also, yeah, if my child tells me they can see men in the trees, we're leaving immediately.
It could also be camouflage. Like, I'm sure the men were camouflaged to look like the trees. You know, maybe their faces were painted, or they were wearing like ghillie suits or something.
That's such like a childlike thing to say it looks like a tree. Like that makes sense. Like to their brain, that's something to compare it to. And when you think about it, like they're wearing those colors, like
yeah, and especially if their faces were painted and you could just make out the eyes, but everything else looks like it could be blending in with the background. So creepy. Well, thank you so much, Cassie, for joining Nat and I for this week's episode of Let's Get Haunted. Can you tell the good folks at home who've made it all the way to the end where they can go listen to your show?
Yeah, you can find Tell Me Your Ghost Story on all podcast platforms. And I am at Tell Me Your Ghost Story Podcast on Instagram, and at Tell Me Your Ghost Story Pod on TikTok.
And now, Cassie, we're going to haze you. We're going to ask you to do the sign off. Nat, can you explain how the sign off works?
So our sign off works just like logging off of your old AOL chat where you would be like, BRB, gotta go. And then you say a callback to something that happened in the previous episode. So it could be like, BRB, gotta go, make sure my Jeep's not haunted.
Okay, I got it. BRB, gotta go sleep in a graveyard on a warm summer day.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome to the closing credits for episode 257. This month, we would love to give a warm, heartfelt thank you to our Patreon donors who donated to us in the month of February 2026, letters A through E. If you'd like to become a donor and hear your name shouted out on a future episode, head over to patreon.com/c/letsgethaunted, where you will not only get a shout out, but you'll also get access to episode extras, minisodes, bonus episodes, vlogs, personal hauntings, live streams, and much, much more. This week, we'd like to thank Sailor Doom, Ab W, Ace G, Adrian L, Adrienne L, Amy S, Elena E, Alaya, Alea, Alicia L, Alicia L, Ali B, Alessa M, Alessandro C, Alex GJ, Alex H, Alex Q, Alex W, Alexandria, Alexis S, Alexis W, Olivia, Alincantation, Ali, Ali B, Ali T, Ali Acai, Ali Acia, Amber F, Amber Alert 42069, Andrew B, Unk Habar, Anne Marie T, Anna S, Anna S, Ann D, Annie T, Answered Satter, Anthony W, AP Trip, Archie F, Arden Strander, Artsy Starkey, Ashley D, Ashley J, Ashley W, Aubrey, Avery K, Baby Ghoul, Bia, Bay, B, Beatriz, Bella Q, Benjamin S, Billy R, Boob 42069, Bookschiff Managed, Bradley M, Brianna, Brianna, Brenna L, Bree E, Brianna, Brianna, Brianna C, Brianna C, Bridget B, Brigitte B, Brielle, Brittany S, Bro Anal, Brooke, Brian, Bucket M, Caitlin, Caitlin D, Cal E, Captain LC, Caroline H, Carolyn H, Carolyn L, Caroline L, Cash Heat, Cassandra S, Cassandra S, Cassidy M, Cassie B, Cassie L, Cat B, Kathleen R, Celeste L, Chatty Watty the Puddin' Patty, Chance the Reaper, Chanel C, Charlie M, Sharon, Sharon, Cheesy, Cherry D, Chicken, Chloe C, Chloe H, Chloe L, Christina T, Christopher M, Christopher M, Christopher O, Christy H, Claire L B, Cole M, Coraline, Corruptive Jade, Courtney N, Christian P, Criley, Crystal C, Crystal T, Cursed Gravy, Cynthia DLTC, Daisy F, Dan the Blacksmith, Danny, Danny T, Daff, DiGiorno Flocka, D Rose, Echo Rain, Ed B, Elise F, Elizabeth P, Ellie M, Emil, Emily, Emily, Emily B, Emily B, Emily O, Emily R, Emily W, Emily C, Emma D, M Storm, Erica M, and Erica. Whoop, hold on. I'm trying to scroll on my list and it just scrolled to the top. Erica A! Erica M and Erica A. Thank you all so much for donating to us in the month of February 2026. We are so appreciative of each and every one of you. I am so grateful to you guys. This year has been incredibly difficult for me, and I try not to complain, but this year has been really fucking hard on me. So, in terms of the podcast, so I just really appreciate you guys being here for us and sticking through these episodes and sticking with us and believing in us and investing in us and giving us your time and energy and interaction and engagement and money and everything, you guys. It really means so much. This has been the worst. I'm usually very motivated, and this year it's been really difficult to find any motivation at all with the podcast. I've been trying really hard, and I just feel like my episodes aren't doing as well as I'd like them to. And so the only thing keeping me going right now is each and every one of you, and I'm being so dead serious. So thank you so much, and I cannot wait to see you over on Patreon. This month, I am live streaming a brand new game I've never played before. It's called Dark Side Detective. We're going to get a little dark-sided over there, so definitely come check it out if you are on the fence. Meanwhile, it's time for me to give you our secret password of the week. You will comment the secret password both on the Spotify comments section and on the Instagram photo dump at Let's Get Haunted. This week's secret password is no onions for those dogs. All right, see you guys later. Bye.